Imagine peering into the secret lives of animals, charting their hidden journeys across continents, across oceans, understanding their world in ways we, well, previously couldn't even imagine.
It's quite something.
That's really the power of modern animal tracking tech. So today, we're doing a deep dive into this fascinating field. We'll explore how scientists and conservationists follow everything from, massive whales right down to tiny
It's
butterflies.
an incredible range.
We'll uncover some amazing insights, but also look at some, let's say, surprising challenges along the way.
Yeah, it's not all straightforward.
Our mission here is to unpack how this technology evolved, show off its most astounding applications, and also highlight the complex scientific and, importantly, ethical questions that pop up as we get closer to really understanding the natural world.
Absolutely.
We've got a stack of sources to guide us, general overviews, even App Store reviews where you can follow animals yourself, plus cutting-edge scientific papers and reports from tech companies involved.
A really good mix to draw from.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's maybe journey back a bit. Where did this all really begin?
Well, you have to go back to the 1960s. Uh, the pioneers were the Craighead brothers.
Ah, the Craigheads, right, Yellowstone.
Exactly. They were really the first ones using these, well, early radio collars to track grizzly bears and elk right there in Yellowstone. Groundbreaking stuff for its time.
Definitely. So how did we get from that, which seems almost primitive now, to where we are today?
It's kind of incredible, the explosion, really. It's become a new revolution. I mean, today, ecologists can literally sit at their desk
Right.
and check the minute-by-minute movements of species that used to be incredibly difficult to study. We're talking GPS radio-collared wildebeest crossing the Serengeti,
Yeah.
or maybe bluefin tuna tagged with Argos satellite transmitters crossing entire oceans.
Wow, that level of detail, that immediacy.
It's just astounding. It really is.
And that precision is so important, isn't it? This modern tech gives us incredibly precise location data, spatial and temporal. And importantly, it allows for unbiased data collection. That seems like a massive leap forward.
It really is.
We can track animals in the dark or during these huge, long migrations where, humans just couldn't observe without causing issues. So what's really driven this jump in precision and, I guess, global reach?
Yeah, you're right. It's all about getting past those earlier problems, the biases and the precision issues we saw with older methods like VHF radio tracking,
Yeah.
GPS and Argos systems. They've just evolved dramatically. Now you can get high-resolution data from almost anywhere on the planet. And, what's fascinating is how companies like uBlocks are pushing things even further.
U-blocks. How so?
Well, they have this thing called Clyde Locate. It pairs up with their very compact GNSS modules, that's Global Navigation Satellite Systems, like GPS.
Okay.
And it directly tackles some of the biggest headaches in tracking, especially in remote places.
Like battery life. I hear that's always a huge constraint with these devices out in the wild.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where the real breakthrough is. It's not just like better antennas or something. It's how they've miniaturized things and used cloud processing. That's what's unlocked tracking in these really tough remote areas by tackling the core problems, cost, and, yeah, battery life.
So how does that work, the cloud part?
Basically, this cloud-based positioning, it massively cuts down power use. The little GNSS receiver on the animal, it only needs maybe, say, 3 to 10 seconds to grab a quick snapshot of the satellite signals.
Ah, okay.
That slashes its power consumption by, well, up to 70% compared to if it had to calculate the position itself the standard way.
70%. That's huge.
It is, and means the battery can last for many years. We're talking potentially up to 4 years for some
Yeah.
uses. Compare that to maybe 18, 24 months for standard GPS.
Wow. That kind of longevity must completely change the game for long-term studies.
Exactly. Less disturbance for the animals, much longer data sets. It's crucial.
So this kind of tech really expands what's possible, who and what we can track. What are some of the maybe memorable examples you've come across?
Oh, there are so many. It's being used on such a wide range of species, and each one has its own, unique challenges. Take Adelie penguins down in Antarctica.
Penguins. Okay.
Yeah, these are small birds, but they swim fast, like 13 kilometers an hour, and they spend most of their time underwater.
Right. Tough to track.
Very. So you need tags that are really non-invasive, super low power, and don't need to transmit tons of data. And tracking them is important because they're seen as indicator species for climate change impacts on the marine ecosystem.
That makes sense. So that's a small, fast, underwater challenge. What about land animals?
Yeah.
Especially the ones that are hard to find.
Good question. Land tracking has its own set of triumphs and hurdles. Think about pangolins in South Africa.
Ah, the most trafficked mammals, sadly.
Tragically, yes. So as part of these intensive programs to release rescued pangolins back into the wild, they're secretly tracked nightly, even though these animals spend like half their lives underground in burrows.
How do they manage that?
With hourly GPS tracking, using this cloud-based snapshot tech. The tracker's battery on the pangolin can last up to a month and a half on just one charge. It's incredibly effective for monitoring these really secretive animals.
A month and a half. Tracking hourly. That's impressive. What about bigger mammals?
Well, then you've got big cats and wild dogs across Africa. Collars are often used there to prevent genetic issues, like animals moving between different reserves when they shouldn't, or to stop them escaping through, fences that aren't perfectly secure.
Okay.
And tracking them has its own quirks. Lions, for example, can just lie still for maybe 18 hours a day.
Right, doing nothing.
Exactly. And often with their collar facing down, which isn't great for satellite connection. So in those cases, taking just periodic snapshots is much better for saving battery. Extends the device life significantly.
Makes sense.
And then rhinos, also in South Africa.
Sure.
Critically endangered black rhinos, white rhinos. They're often fitted with these things called horn pods.
Horn pods.
Yeah, they're mounted on the stump after a rhino has been dehorned, which is done for anti-poaching reasons, sadly.
Update, right.
These pods can last 2 to 3 years. The data helps biologists with population management, understanding their home ranges, habitat use, and park rangers use platforms like Earth Ranger to monitor movements, see if they're getting near fences, how they interact with other animals.
That sounds incredibly useful for management.
It is. And a key thing there was the shift away from older ground-based networks, like LoRaWAN. That needed towers built out in the bush.
Right, infrastructure.
Exactly. Moving to satellite tech, like u-blox offers, made deployment way easier and let them track many more animals.
It's amazing how sophisticated these tags are getting. Such long-term, detailed studies possible now. But, okay, what about creatures that are just too small? Even for the tiniest GPS tag. How do you track, say, fish in a huge river system like the Mekong or the flight of a butterfly?
Yeah, that's where you need different kinds of innovation. Tagless or maybe minimally invasive methods. For a fish, take acoustic telemetry.
Acoustic. Sound-based.
Exactly. There's great work by Fish BO in the Cambodian Mekong. They set up the first ever acoustic receiver network. There are 36 receivers spread out. And what's really cool is how they worked with local communities.
How so?
The locals helped build the floating platforms for the receivers, shared their knowledge of the river, the fish migrations. It was real collaboration.
That's great too.
And a really memorable example. They actually detected a 300-kilogram giant freshwater stingray.
Whoa. 300 kilos.
Yeah, the largest true freshwater fish ever recorded. It was caught accidentally by a local fisher, tagged, and then pinged on their new acoustic network.
Incredible.
And it highlights international cooperation, too. Sharing data with Laos showed fish moving between the two countries. These river systems are all connected, you see.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's fish. But butterflies? I mean, how on earth do you track something so fragile?
Yeah, it seems impossible, right?
Yeah.
But we're seeing really cutting-edge stuff now, like UAV image-based tracking.
Using drones.
Exactly. Drones flying high up, filming straight down. They capture video at, like, 30 frames per second, and the resolution is so good, each pixel might only cover 16 millimeters on the ground.
That's tiny detail.
It lets them track individual butterflies as these little pixel blobs moving across the landscape. You get this unprecedented resolution in space and time. They can see tiny meter-scale sub-second wiggles in their flight path.
Wow, just from video.
Just from video. And crucially, this non-invasive method actually confirms something biologists suspected. This transgenerational migration in Pierre's butterflies.
Meaning
The whole migration journey takes multiple generations to complete. They found the butterflies fly north in the early season, like June, early July, and then later generations fly south in the late season, around September.
That's fascinating. Confirming that just by watching from above.
It is, and it's not just visual. You mentioned AI. We're even seeing AI systems using call detection, listening for birds to help track migrations. It's just a really diverse, a rapidly expanding landscape of innovation.
Truly is. Different tools for different creatures.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It shows how much ingenuity is going into just trying to understand how animals move.
Okay, that's incredible progress on the tech side. But let's peel back the layers a bit. What happens when we look at the maybe unexpected complexities, the challenges this tech brings? Because, with great power.
That comes great responsibility. Absolutely it does. And while the benefits are huge, there are definitely significant scientific limitations we need to talk about with GPS telemetry. A review by Hebblewhite and Hayden really highlighted some of these.
Like what?
Well, first, cost versus sample size. A GPS collar might cost, say, $2,000 to $8,000. An old VHF radio collar, maybe $200 to $600.
Big difference.
Huge. And that high cost often means researchers use smaller sample sizes. The average GPS study they looked at tracked about 18 animals. VHS studies, nearly 59.
So fewer animals tracked with the expensive tech.
Right. And that can potentially reduce the statistical power of the study, makes it harder to draw really solid conclusions about the whole population. Plus, you have collar failures, 5 to 50% can just stop working, which makes your sample size even smaller.
Huh. So even with all this amazing data per animal, we might be getting less robust information overall in some cases. That's kind of counterintuitive.
It can be a real trade-off. And another concern that's popping up is this idea of divorcing biologists from the field.
What do you mean?
Well, if you rely solely on data beamed back to your computer, you might spend less and less time actually out there observing the animals, the habitat, directly.
Losing that hands-on connection.
Exactly. You risk losing that important biological feel, that intuition you get from being immersed in this system. You know, the Craigheads, the pioneers, they were field biologists first. That deep observation skill isn't easily replaced by tech alone.
That's a really interesting point.
And one to know on the science side, the data mismatch problem. We now get this incredibly fine-grained data on where animals move, second by second sometimes.
Yeah.
But we often don't have equally fine-grained data on why. What resources were available right there, right then?
Yeah.
What was the animal actually doing? Eating, resting, running from something.
Right. The context is missing.
Precisely. So there's a real need to combine that GPS data with other things. Satellite imagery of vegetation, maybe, but also direct field observations to really understand the behavior behind the movements.
Okay, so those are some significant scientific hurdles or considerations, but it sounds like there are also pretty big human and ethical dimensions creeping in.
Oh, absolutely. You've hit on a really crucial area. We're seeing some complex, even troubling issues emerge right at the frontier,
Yeah.
where tracking meets conservation and management.
Troubling how?
Well, one is data misuse. There have been cases where, for instance, anglers tried to get access to tracking data for northern pike to help them catch the fish.
Seriously?
Yeah. And more alarmingly, in Australia, data from research tagging programs on sharks has apparently been used by shark culling programs to actually find and kill tagged animals.
Wow. That's the opposite of the research goal.
Exactly. And it gets darker. There have been reports of cyber poaching attempts trying to hack into systems to get the GPS locations of endangered animals, like Bengal tigers.
So the very data meant to protect them could be used to hunt them. That's a chilling thought.
It's a stark reality we have to confront. Then there's the issue of kind of public interference.
Right.
People buying tracking gear themselves, not for research, but maybe for wildlife photography or just curiosity.
Okay.
The problem is this can lead to animals getting used to humans, maybe approaching people or vehicles, which changes their natural behavior and can lead to conflict down the line. It got serious enough that Parks Canada actually banned the public from using VHF radio receivers in Banff National Park.
To stop people tracking the collared animals themselves.
Precisely. And beyond that, there are even fears about deliberate sabotage. Yeah, or what some have grimly called telemetry terrorism, malicious attempts to mess up research studies. Maybe deploying tags with duplicate codes to confuse the system, or flooding an area with so many signals that the researchers' receivers can't function. It puts the data, and potentially the animals, at risk.
That sounds extreme, but I guess possible.
It's a concern. And finally, there's just public perception, which is really varied and complex.
How so?
Well, for example, some Aboriginal fishing communities in Canada see tagging wild salmon as fundamentally disrespectful, like playing with food, which clashes with their cultural beliefs.
Okay, a cultural values conflict.
Right, or Inuit communities worried that acoustic transmitters used on marine mammals might scare away wildlife that's culturally important to them, or just add to noise pollution. And then you have purely aesthetic objections, like wildlife photographers who just don't like seeing animals with tags on.
So it's not just about the science or the tech itself, but how it bumps up against different human values, cultures, and concerns.
Exactly. It's incredibly multifaceted.
Which really brings us to a critical question then. How do we navigate all this? How do we make sure this powerful technology actually serves conservation and doesn't, inadvertently cause more harm?
That is the crucial question. And the answer probably lies in putting much more effort into understanding and addressing these human dimensions.
So what would that look like?
It means proactive strategies, things like co-creating the research goals with local partners and stakeholders right from the start, maybe including them in the research itself.
Makes sense, giving people ownership.
Yeah. Having really clear data sharing policies, who gets the data, when, under what conditions. Strong data security is obviously paramount now, encouraging the tech industry itself to build in safeguards against exploitation. And regulators need to step up with clear, enforceable policies.
So a multi-pronged approach.
Definitely. It requires critical thinking from everyone involved, especially in this age of just information overload. We need to learn from mistakes, learn from successes, and constantly ask if we're using this tech responsibly.
Okay, so despite all those challenges, and they are very real, the benefits of animal tracking tech for conservation, for just understanding our planet, seem undeniable. So, wrapping things up, what's the bottom line here? What's the big takeaway?
I think the bottom line is that yes, despite the complexities, GPS telemetry and tracking tech in general has fundamentally changed conservation for the better. It's brought huge improvements in how we model habitats, how we identify critical areas for species survival, think woodland caribou or African
Where
elephant.
them pointing key zones.
Exactly. And understanding human impacts, whether it's energy development, roads, recreation, it's given us really definitive ecological insights. We finally understand the mechanisms of things like migration much better. How wildebeest, for instance, literally follow these green waves of fresh grass across the Serengeti.
Seeing the patterns.
Yes. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, our understanding of how far animals move, how connected landscapes need to be, it's just orders of magnitude greater than before. Think about that wolf whose journey, tracked by an Argos collar, actually inspired the whole Yellowstone to Yukon Conservation Initiative.
Wow, one animal's data leading to that scale of thinking.
It happens. Or mapping crucial migration corridors for pronghorn, and then realizing they're threatened by development. Sometimes, just the visual appeal of seeing those GPS tracks on a map speaks volumes for conservation, even before complex analysis.
Data visualization as advocacy.
It can be incredibly powerful. And finally, it's a vital tool for projecting the impacts of climate change. Studies using tracking data have predicted, for instance, significant declines in polar bear habitat as sea ice changes. It's truly transformative knowledge.
So yeah, from those first kind of clunky radio collars the Craigheads used back in the 60s to tracking butterflies with drones using AI and these super long-lasting horn pods on rhinos, we've come an incredibly long way.
We really have.
This deep dive, I think, has really shown us both the immense potential, but also the intricate responsibilities that come with trying to unravel the mysteries of animal movement.
Well put.
So thinking ahead, what new challenges, what profound discoveries might be waiting as we keep shrinking these trackers, refining the data, pushing further into the animal kingdom? How are we going to balance that relentless tech advance with the absolute need for ethical awareness and, the duty to protect the very species we're trying to understand?
That's the ongoing question, isn't it?
It is something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over or explore on your own.